Long before there were pharmacies, there were healers. Mothers, fathers, and neighbors who turned to the earth for wellness. Welcome to the Reality of Herbal Therapy podcast with Jim Applegate. Each week we explore the plants, traditions, and time-honored remedies that connect us to that ancient wisdom, so you can bring it into your modern life.
So the other day we had somebody come in to the office, and they were asking, like, where did this come from? How did they come about? What's all about these formulas? And so I thought, hey, that would be an awesome thing to share with everybody on the podcast and let everybody know where these formulas came from. Because there's different when you go to a health food store, there's all sorts of options and there's all sorts of different brands and things like that. But every single one of the formulas that we make have a story, have a background, and they actually have a person that was the start or the genesis of that formula, and then it progressed to where the formula is today. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. So if you're not familiar with Dr. James, my father-in-law, at the age of 18, he was admitted to the hospital with bleeding ulcers. And basically, through everything that the doctors did, they nearly killed him because of the way they were treating him. They were treating him completely wrong, not treating where the ulcer was. They were treating in the wrong spot. So it basically nearly killed him. So he really had, from that experience, a pretty strong distrust of doctors in the medical profession. Well, so a few years later, he found himself in Oregon in the Willamette Valley. And if you're familiar with Oregon, or if you have seen pictures, Oregon is green, especially the Willamette Valley. It's a very lush green valley. While we were living there, someone told us that the natives around there called it the Valley of Death, simply because of all of the mold and the toxins that grow because the area is so wet. We would watch, my wife would, having grown up here in New Mexico, would see pictures of Oregon and she's like, that's fake. That's Photoshop. There ain't that much green anywhere on this earth. And then we get there and it is green. It is very, very green. And Dr. James found that he had some pretty severe allergies once he got to Oregon and was around all of that change of environment. When we were living up there, all of our kids got very, very sick. That the first autumn that we were up there, the kids got very sick. So that was like within 2 or 3 months of us being there. Upper respiratory, all sorts of things. And they had to learn how to deal with it. So that's what Dr. James did. He was really, really sick. He called the doctor's office and they're like, well, we're booked up for another 6 months, so we can get you in 6 months. And he's like, I'm suffering now. I need something now. And I'm like, oh, well, if you're that bad, go to the emergency room. And he was like, I walked into the hospital once and almost didn't walk out. I'm not going back. So a friend of his had a book called Back to Eden, which was all about herbs and combining herbs and the use of herbs. So he started reading through the book and found what herbs would help with the allergies and the upper respiratory things he had going on. So he started to experiment on himself and treat himself. So like I talked about, all of the formulas have a person. Hay Asz is Dr. James. That one he made for himself, for the allergies. Later on in his life, he hardly ever took Hay Asz. If you listen to some of the recordings, sometimes you can hear him sniffling a little bit, like this. And he would just take a couple of Hay Asz and it would go away. And he would be fine, for weeks because of having built up the tolerance to allergies or whatever is causing the sniffles and stuff. So that's how Dr. James got into making herbal formulas. So he came back from Oregon a few years later, back to New Mexico, and he was looking for a herbal school. He decided that's what he wanted to do with his life, was to be an herbalist. And at the time, there was 2 schools, one in Europe and one in Canada. And so he opted for the closer one, the one in Canada. So he went to the Dominion Herbal College, where he studied herbology and formula making and stuff. So the head of the school at that time was the founder, Ella Berznik. He said she was the cutest, sweetest, short, little Latvian woman, but she really, really knew herbs, and she really knew the way to use herbs to give somebody a happier, better life. That was her whole point of using herbs, was to get to that point. And so she trained Dr. James in how to do that. And she said, when you get home, you don't want to like get into formula making and do these huge test runs and do all this stuff. She said, buy yourself a truck, an old mail truck, an old delivery truck, and get all the herbs that you're going to need. You can start off with about 20, 25 herbs and make house calls. And so that's what Dr. James did. He would make house calls. He would go to someone's home, visit with them for a little bit, find out what their needs are. And then he would go out to his truck where he had all the different herbs. He would mix them up a tea. So just like in the 20 Herbs book, how if it has an ailment, you look at it and it would talk about the herbal tea to make for it. He would actually do that, go out to his truck, mix it up, take it into him, and he'd be like, here's 2 weeks worth, make the tea every day and drink it twice a day or whatever, whatever he would come up with. That's where the formulas started. So a good example is Flem Up. Had a man, severe asthmatic, had really bad asthma. And so he went to see him and he mixed together the herbs that are now Flem Up, gave it to the man. And it's funny, like hearing the story, because he gave it to the man and his instructor, Ella Berznik, said that it could cause a little bit of vomiting. And so he was like, okay, well, we'll expect that. If you have massive amount of phlegm and mucus built up in the lungs, then it can cause vomiting and throwing up. And we've actually learned recently, depending on how dark it is, it actually could be mold. So if you've got mold growing in your lungs, Flem Up will move that out, but you're going to have to get rid of the mold, which sometimes is vomiting. So he makes the tea for the gentleman, says, here, drink this. And the man instantly, like within just a couple of minutes, started vomiting. And he said it was like black tar that this guy's vomiting. And so Dr. James mentioned later, he was like, that was the first really surprise. First time he was surprised. He's like, whoa, it really worked it, but whoa, what do I do? So he went back to his bedside manner, sat there by the man, patted him on the back, and while he's vomiting up this black tar, and says, you're doing good. You're doing good. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. You're doing good. And Dr. James said the amazing thing, the thing that like really, really surprised him after that, was the man no longer had asthma. Like he was really, really severe asthmatic before he made that tea. And then afterwards, the asthma was gone because he had gotten rid of all of that black tar. But that's how Dr. James figured out his formulas. So basically, he would see somebody who had something like that. So that man had asthma. He had all of his friends who had asthma. He would tell all of his friends, hey, I know this guy that just took care of my asthma, and he would refer them. Dr. James would see all of them. So he would see the person. He would like look through his books, figure out what kind of formula to make, and he would write down the formula in his formula book. And then as he would see somebody else, he would see them come up with a different formula, write down the formula. But then he would see some herbs worked better than others, and all of the formulas evolved into the formulas that we have today. So that's part of why all of Dr. James's formulas work so differently than what you can find in the health food stores, is because he tried them. They were tested. They're actually patients. He said he can't look at one of the formulas and not see the face of the person that inspired the start of the formula, even though there may have been several people that were taking it. And he could always he always remembered people by the formulas that they needed, because that's how he saw them living a life of happiness, was just from whatever formula it was that he gave them. And so that's a big difference. A lot of when you go into a health food store, you can look at several different bottles and they're all very, very similar. And the reason is because basically somebody can walk into a health food store, look at some formula, like, oh, I can make that. That's easy. And they throw it together and it's all copycat. There's not something that was a person had a need, and Dr. James worked through the need, looked at the herbs that they needed, and then made that formula for that specific person. But then he found that formula he would work the formula with seeing many people until he came up with a formula that worked every single time. So whether it's Hay Asz was the formula that he made for himself, and it went through several iterations and several different things as he would work with people and see different things to the point where he knew that it would work every single time. So when somebody walks in to the office here and they with broken arm, or they're bandaged up or something like that, and somebody from work told them, hey, you need tissue mend, I have the confidence to be able to say, yeah, this is going to make a difference because we know it works. It's been tried and tested with a lot of people. And so that's the difference between something that's clinic tested and the generic, whatever you can find on the health food store shelves. The reason Dr. James went to making the formulas himself. So he started having it in his truck, and when you have 25 different herbs, it's not that bad to have that many herbs. But right now we're using between 95 to 100 different herbs, and that can get expensive and a lot to have had in his truck. So he would tell people, he'd go out, figure out the formula and say, okay, here's the formula. Go to your health food store, pick up these herbs and make up the tea, and teach them how to make the tea, and then drink it twice a day or 3 times a day, or, whatever their needs were. And then I'll see you in a couple of weeks. So the problem with that was that Dr. James would send them off to the health food store to get whatever. And you never know, the quality, where it came from. And if you talk to some herbalists, they'll tell you some stories about where herbs come from. And so Dr. James and his teacher, Ella Berznik, was very adamant about quality and freshness. Those were 2 very important keys. And there's things that we still talk about to this day that we still watch and are concerned about as we make our herbal formulas. So basically, Dr. James could find out that the quality and freshness weren't always what he would expect and what he needed for the people to take. And so when he would have them send them off to the health food store to get it, the quality was never the same, or it could be great, could be bad. He never knew, and he never got the results that he needed for his client to feel better. And then sometimes he would say, go get this herb, and you can't find it on any health food store shelves. It became really difficult sometimes to have them. And so he was like, I guess I got to make them myself. So then it comes down to, do I make teas? Do I do tinctures? He looked at all of the options for making these special formulas. So with teas, people get tired of sticks in the sink and straining it and everything like that. You want something and it takes work. You have to get out the teapot and boil the water and steep the tea and remember to do that multiple times a day. And that was difficult. Tinctures take a while to steep in whatever medium you're wanting to use. And Dr. James once said that when you're using alcohol alcohol does have its benefits, but the herbs are drunk. And if your herbs are drunk, it's just like a drunk person. Sometimes they aren't as effective as you want them to be. So he's like, it has to go back to the whole plant. Then you get the fiber of the plant, and there's certain things that are only in the plant, and you lose in tincturing and tea making. So he came to capsules. Capsules are very portable. Capsules are easy to carry around. So he started making capsules. And that's what we continue to make to this day are the herb capsules, simply because it's convenient, it's easy, they're readily available, and we control the quality and the freshness of the herbs, which that brings back to the, whenever somebody comes into the office asking for a certain herb, I know it's going to work because I control the quality and the freshness. I control what goes into it. I control how long it's been sitting on our shelves. With most of our formulas, sometimes we run out because there'll be a lot of people ordering it or whatever. And I try not to have too much on the shelves. I want it to sell. I want to get through the stock that we have really quickly, simply because we want to maintain that freshness and that quality. So I want to talk a little bit about Dr. James's approach to healing the body. So when you look at pharmaceutical drugs, a lot of them they target a certain symptom or a certain issue. So like, for example, if you go to the doctor, I have high blood pressure, they'll give you a pharmaceutical for your high blood pressure. But when you look at herbal formulas, there is something wrong that is causing your blood pressure to be off. So you want to look at the system that causes the blood pressure to be off. Generally, it is either your kidneys. Basically, it's a filtration problem, and there's something going on within the kidneys, or it's stress related. Those are the two common things. So you look for what is the root cause, and you treat the root cause. You heal the system that is being affected. And so that's why we've talked about so much about different systems of the body, because different body issues, for example, skin problems, acne or boils or anything coming out on the skin, that means the blood is dirty and you want to clean up the blood. For allergies, we don't really treat allergies or a problem with certain reactions to certain things. Basically, we want to strengthen the upper respiratory system, because allergies is a response to a toxin invading the body. And so allergies, the sore eyes that are draining, or the draining sinuses, you've got toxins, something that is toxic to your body. So an allergen is toxic to your individual body, and your body's trying to get rid of it. It'll do whatever it can to get rid of it. So you want to make that system healthy so that it can get rid or prevent that toxin from getting into the body, whether it's a pollen or a seed or, smoke or whatever is in the air is irritating the upper respiratory system. It's inundated and overwhelmed and trying to deal with all of that, and it can't. So Hay Asz strengthens the upper respiratory system to clean it out so that the respiratory system can do its job. So that is what the herbal formulas are. So you want to look at the system. What's this? Whenever somebody will say, okay, I've got such and such issue, how do you deal with it? And sometimes, they'll come up with some name for whatever, and it's like, I've never even heard of that. But what I do is I will search for it, like Google it or search on the internet for whatever the issue is, and look at what system of the body it affects, and you start healing the body, healing that system, giving that system the nutrients it needs so that it can heal itself and take care of itself. So herbal therapy doesn't look at just symptoms or look for, do all these tests to come up with a set disease. One of the things that would always frustrate Dr. James somebody would come in with, kidney pain or lower back pain, frequent urination or burning with urination, and say, well, you need to take Bladney. And they're like, oh, no, I've been to the doctor. I had a test. I don't have a kidney infection. The white blood count isn't that high. And he's like, that has nothing we're not looking for what your white blood count is or white blood cell count is or what's going on with the kidneys. There's a pain, there's an ache, there's something that isn't right, and you just haven't hit their threshold to say, yes, you have a kidney infection. You're on your way to a kidney infection, and it may be shortly thereafter, or your body may do what it be able to take care of it. But if you take bladney infection, it's going to heal it faster. So when you're looking at healing anything, doing anything with herbs, we're not treating any specific disease. You're not treating any symptoms. You're not treating any, you're not curing any disease. What you're doing is you're giving your body the necessary nutrients for your body to take care of itself. Our bodies are extremely amazing, and they can heal themselves and fix all sorts of issues and stuff simply by giving them the necessary nutrients. And that's what you're doing with herbs, is look for whatever the affected system is and give it nourishment, feed it what it needs, and let your body fix whatever's going on. So I hope this has kind of helped you find out why we do these formulas, where these formulas came from. We could talk all day about ulcer started with Dr. James's father, Hay Asz for Dr. James. Anemia was for one of his daughters. He always teased that tonic F was for him. He never took tonic F, but it sure made his household happy because he had all of those girls in the house and all those teenage girls, and he would go around and pass out the tonic F to make for a happy home. And he was teasing, of course, but it was funny that he made tonic F for him, but he never took it. All of these formulas are built on individuals. And so the formula, when you get it for you, it is intended strictly for you. It is when you're taking it to heal whatever system is being affected. Dr. James made it specifically for you, and it's right there for you to take to help you overcome it. If you have any questions about which formula to take and when and how it helps, you're welcome to call us, email us. We love sharing this information and sharing what Dr. James started to keep it alive. I have people who come into the office quite often, and they're like, don't you ever stop making these. You got to keep making it because I depend on it. We have people, sometimes it's really funny. Somebody will be in the office to get whatever that they always take, and somebody will come in with some questions, and they're like, oh, is this your first time getting these? And they're like, oh yeah, I've just heard about it from my friend or my neighbor or whatever. And they're like, the recurring words that a lot of people say is, Dr. James saved my life. And I know a lot of these formulas, it's not that they change anything as far as keeping you alive from severe disease, but it saved your quality of life. It saved their quality of life. It made it so they could live a happier, healthier life. And that's why we do this. So it has been a pleasure sharing this with you, and I will talk to you next time.
You've been listening to the Reality of Herbal Therapy podcast with Jim Applegate. Visit drugfreehelpstore.com to download your free Healer in Every Home guidebook and explore herbal formulas that support your health naturally. Be sure to follow the podcast, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves natural living as much as you do. Thanks for joining us, and remember, true healing starts at home.
It is not the intent of professional herbal instruction or any persons associated therewith to diagnose or prescribe. The intent is only to offer herbal information for your consideration. In the event you use this information without your doctor's approval, you are prescribing for yourself, which is your God-given right. But professional herbal instruction or any persons associated herewith assume no responsibility. The claims and statements made on this podcast have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.